Let's be honest, the whole game of financial compliance for businesses in the UAE has completely changed. I mean, what worked just a couple of years ago could be a massive risk for you today. So in this explainer, we're going to break down why 2026 is such a pivotal year for SMEs and why so many are now turning to professional outsourcing, not just to cut costs, but to manage some really significant financial risks.
So I've got a question for you, and I want you to really think about it. Is your business genuinely ready for this new reality? Because the combined weight of all these recent changes has made financial management way more complex than it used to be, and trust me, the stakes have never been higher.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to dive into this new compliance reality and talk about a huge expertise gap that a lot of businesses are facing. Then, we'll get into a really high-stakes example. I call it the VAT refund trap. After that, we'll pivot to the solution, which is professional outsourcing, and we'll wrap up with the strategic decision your business really needs to think about.
First up, let's talk about this new reality. And I'm not exaggerating here. The rulebook has basically been rewritten for any business operating in the UAE. The game has truly changed.
And you can really see this shift on a timeline. It all started back in 2018 with the introduction of VAT. Then, boom, in 2023, they added a whole new layer of complexity with corporate tax. And that brings us to 2026, where we're seeing a major ramp up in audits and enforcement from the Federal Tax Authority. You see, each step has built on the last, creating a much tougher environment.
So, what's really raising the stakes this year? Well, for one, the FTA is expanding its verification reviews, really digging into things like your input tax claims and your documentation. Second, the corporate tax system is now fully up and running, and you've got to figure out how it all works together with your VAT reporting. On top of that, there's way more scrutiny on VAT returns, especially those refund claims. And the big one? The penalties for getting any of this wrong are getting steeper, making non-compliance a very expensive mistake.
Okay, so all of this change leads to a massive problem for a lot of companies, the internal expertise gap. And it really boils down to this. Your day-to-day bookkeeper, as great as they might be, is probably not a tax specialist.
This slide just nails the difference. On one hand, you've got your essential bookkeeping tasks, right? Recording transactions, running payroll, paying vendors. That's all operational stuff. But look at the other side. Look at what compliance actually requires today. Deep knowledge of FTA regulations, being able to interpret specific VAT clarifications, and knowing how to juggle both VAT and corporate tax together. These are just two totally different worlds.
Now, I really want to be clear here. This is not about pointing fingers at your accountant. Most of these compliance gaps are not happening because of bad bookkeeping. They're happening because navigating the tax world in 2026 requires a level of professional, technical know-how that's just way beyond what a standard accounting role is designed for.
So let's make this real. We're going to look at a super high-stakes example that I call the VAT refund trap. It's the perfect illustration of this expertise gap, and honestly, it's one of the most significant and most mismanaged areas of compliance out there.
So just so we're all on the same page, what exactly is a VAT refund? It's pretty simple, really. If your business pays more VAT on its purchases, that's called input tax, than it collects on its sales, that's output tax, you're entitled to claim that difference back from the FTA. This is pretty common for businesses that export or make big investments.
But here's where the trap starts to close in. There's a ticking clock. You have exactly 5 years from the end of that tax period to submit your claim. If you miss that window, that's it. Your right to get that money back is gone, forever. It's a huge and completely avoidable financial loss. And get this, even if you get your claim in on time, there's still a good chance it could get rejected. So why does this happen? Well, the reasons are almost always the same. Maybe your invoices don't meet these strict FDA standards, or you tried to claim VAT on something you can't, like entertainment expenses. Maybe you didn't have enough paperwork to prove an expense was for the business, or there were just simple errors on the VAT return itself. Every single one of these requires specialist knowledge to avoid.
All right, so we've spent a lot of time on the problem. Let's pivot to the solution, professional outsourcing. And I want you to think about this not as just another expense, but as a real investment in managing risk and, frankly, getting some peace of mind.
I think this quote just says it all, really. In 2026, outsourcing these functions is no longer a cost-cutting measure. It's a core strategic decision. It's about getting ahead of the curve and proactively managing all those complex risks we've been talking about.
So what do you actually get out of this? Well, the benefits are pretty huge. First up, you get instant access to tax experts who live and breathe this stuff, without the massive cost of hiring them full-time.
Second, they can professionalize your VAT refund process, which means more accurate claims and better cash flow for you. Third, your books are kept audit-ready all the time, not just in a panic when you get an inspection notice. And finally, they manage your VAT and corporate tax together so you don't have those costly errors between the two systems.
Okay, I know what some of you might be thinking, but I don't want to lose control of my finances. I get it. But modern outsourced accounting isn't like that anymore. Thanks to cloud-based platforms, you keep full, real-time visibility of everything. You get all the benefits of professional oversight while you stay firmly in the driver's seat.
So, this all brings us to the big takeaway, your strategic decision. What does this actually mean for your business right here, right now?
Look, if there's one thing you take away from all this, it's this. The regulatory environment has evolved. And to handle it successfully, investing in professional, specialized compliance support is no longer a nice-to-have, it's an absolute essential. It's how you avoid those crippling penalties, maximize your recoveries like VAT refunds, and run your business with real financial confidence.
And that really leaves you with one last question to ask yourself. As you think about your own company, is your current approach to accounting and tax a real safety net, protecting you from all these new risks? Or is it a blind spot, leaving you totally exposed to problems you can't